You know, when I went to see the oncologist, he said to me, because I wanted the results of a CT scan, and he says, oh my God, he said, you're amazing. He said, you should be dead now. They were the exact words he used. Could you imagine that? You should be dead now. But anyway,
Maybe he needs to learn some bedside manner.
well,
No,
but
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 how
that's
long?
that.
So how
mm,
long ago was that?
that I went to see him
Yeah.
a couple of weeks ago,
Oh
a few
yeah.
weeks.
Hey, let me grab my phone so I can see comments since we're not in restream. Hang on.
I went to the oncologist. He said to me,
Okay. Sorry about that.
no worries.
Yeah, we're actually live. Let me just see if it's showing up. Should be. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna tag you. All right. I'll tag you
Oh,
on the. So just while we're waiting for people to come in Trisha. Yeah, I was like really happy that you got on because I know, well, because I see you on all the time, and it's not just seeing you there, knowing you, but I see your comments and your questions, and I know where you're coming from because I know your story, and then I get on. I don't really surf, but I pick up things as things are presented to you as you need them, right? And I always seem to pick you up. Like I think there was one a while back. You were at the beach, and there's just these different things where you come on, and it's captivating. You
oh, wow.
know,
Thank you.
just yeah. I mean, like, who was it? Who was it that was on the other day, and they were speaking about their own situation. I mean, the mortality was in question and all that, and I remember seeing you on there. Um, might have even been yesterday was another one, but your perspective. I mean, I'm amazed at how, I don't know if this is the right word, but how accommodating and accepting you are of everything. Certainly the things that you're going through, but I mean, like, you just seem to have like this I'm good thing
Yeah.
going.
I don't
Is
know.
that
Is there any other way to be though? Like, I mean, the whole journey is just brought an acute lens, really. And
yeah.
I suppose I look at it like a tightrope walk between two buildings. And so the lens is really acute in the way you put one foot in front of the other. And you've got to, in a way, block out everything else that's coming at you,
Yeah.
life or around the world or whatever, because you're
Well,
on a
there's been
mission.
some, there's been some amazing people come on in the last, I'm going to say, well, obviously, through the whole time period these last few years, but there seems to be an uptick in frequency of people that have come on this show and have talked about some seriously incredible, I guess, self healing episodes or experiences that they've had. And then I also think about some private conversations that I had with Franco Di Nicola. And a lot of people don't know the extent of his health issues. They were it was a very long period of time. He technically, stopped functioning, died about 5 times during that time period. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because they told him the same thing.
Mm,
They said, you shouldn't be walking. What are you doing here?
mm.
So there's something happening with um, the transformation of the biological that's somehow or another is directly correlating with what you're exhibiting, which is kind of like, in simple terms to me, it's like your frequency speaks for itself. Your frequency does everything. It, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I kind of feel inspired of myself. I think, well, first of all, I know for me a decision had to be made. I had to make a decision, you know, do I want to be here? And that came through loud and clear through the journey for me as a starting point, and then the intent, and then what that looks like moving forward, you know, with something like, I guess, you know, the illness that I've been traversing. It's really weird. I just went off into another stratosphere then and totally don't know what I was just saying.
Yeah, that's what happens. So, I mean,
Oh,
like,
I don't know
I
where I
am,
was now.
I feel like, okay, so trying to explain this, but like, I feel like you're, like, it's almost like invading your privacy. Um, and what I mean by that is you're so open. Like, you're showing people something that you don't see very often. Like, I think the last time we talked, when we first talked, was like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And I remember very much, not the details, but I remember the energy, and I remember your energy. And I look at you now, and you looked great then, but you look incredible. Like, how do you get there? How does this happen?
I think in the world of what we've been used to, it doesn't add up, because it's certainly not adding up to it's certainly not adding up to the medical paradigm. You know, I had a palliative care nurse who said to me on the phone the other day, she said, in all my years I've been nursing pancreatic cancer patients, she said, none of them, not one of them, has survived beyond months. She said, until she said, that's amazing. And, the question is, how do you get there? I just know it's not a one size fits all. I don't know. I think with something like this, you get brought into yourself. It's just such a journey within, isn't it?
I don't know. I've had people come on here and they've talked about, I remember I had this one lady from Norway that she came on a few times a couple of years ago, and she had 3 bouts with cancer. And her story was just crazy because I'd never heard anyone talk in terms of a reverence and a love and an honoring of whatever it was they were contending with
Mm.
in that kind of, context. Something life threatening, something, but it
Get you
is,
going.
right. But, it is the age of transformation, the Trinity energy, the magic. And do you feel like that's part of what your purpose is to,
Definitely,
yeah.
definitely to transcend all, definitely. I mean, the truth is I had 3 tumors. I've now got one and 2 have gone. And the old paradigm can't figure it out. And that's just the fact of it, you know.
Really?
But when you say, well, how did you do it? I suppose it's just a combination of things that resonated with me, along with the intent, and not accepting that was going to take me out.
Now,
The absolute
did you have chemo?
no,
Wow. So
no,
you
because
had 3 pancreatic tumors and 2 have gone.
I, 2 in the pancreas, and 1 in the duodenum.
Okay.
And so what I did, I approached it in a holistic way, because they told me if I had chemo, they could push my life out 12 months. Well, that wasn't good enough for me, and chemo was never going to resonate with me. I
Right,
mean,
right.
everyone to their own choices and decisions around this, but it was not something. And, But, I have needed the hospital on my journey through the year for other related things, not to heal the tumour, but because it's created all sorts of other issues,
Right. I picked up on some of that on some of your posts. So
Yeah.
how long's it been? It's been like 2 years?
No, it hasn't. It's probably more like 15 months.
15 months. Okay.
Months, which wasn't bad considering, they said 6 to 9 months, or push it out to a year, if you do chemo. But, and here I am telling the tale. So
I know.
I'm
And
pretty happy about that.
that's what I
Mm.
was talking about with the frequency. It's I don't know. So we had a lady, a sister, come on. I think she was from Bulgaria. She relocated to Canada. She gets over to Canada, and like a lot of us, the life unraveled a little bit. A relationship ended, I think, or something like that. Anyway, she's probably at the time 30s, early 30s, and she goes in and just like that, you've got 6 months, and we want to put you on chemo now.
Yeah.
And she said, let me go home and think about it. And so she went home, and I guess she was getting downloaded or whatever. And I obviously did some things, dietary changes and such, but she went back two months later, 2.5 months later, and it was all gone.
Wow.
And they said, same thing that this lady said to you, like, we've never seen this, but we want you to go ahead and do, I think, 4 rounds of chemo because we just want to make sure. And she actually resonated with it. She goes, okay, I'll do that. And but I think it's like, several years later now, but this isn't the only one. And you like these others are turning heads, but it just seems to be more prevalent.
It's more
Right.
prevalent, definitely. Definitely. And, I couldn't imagine trying to do this 20 years ago, although 20 years ago I did do this because I had tumours in my ovaries. So, but the energy is definitely more supportive now,
Yeah.
you know, around intention and creation.
So are you getting like internal guidance as to what changes you might have made or whatever's going on? Or is it just feel like you're calling the shots yourself? Trisha
Well,
is calling
yeah.
the shots herself.
You see, it's a really interesting question, but I suppose there's nothing planned. There's nothing been planned. I've had a fair idea on what I'm going to do,
Right.
but it's been an organic flow. And the first thing I needed to get right with myself was to go internally and allow that to be my barometer, not into my head, where we
Right.
collect information, and because people, what they want to throw all sorts of solutions at you. But so dropping into that heart-centered space and recognizing my own truth and recognizing that my truth isn't necessarily somebody else's truth, which is
Right.
why I really deeply feel it's not a one-size-fits-all when it comes to healing, and my reality. So I would have the intent, and then things would happen, that I wouldn't necessarily chant for, ask for, meditate for, but they would happen as an organic flow. For example, just different beings that would kind of turn up in my bedroom, which, and I don't put labels on those things and I don't research what they might have been, because it's 100% an experiential thing.
Right.
And it doesn't matter whether I call them, I don't know, a galactic, I don't know, an Arcturian,
Right.
a Pleiadian. Doesn't matter, you see, because
Right.
it's what is in my reality in that moment, and
Right.
how I interact with that, and how I accept the help and have the discernment around. Because it's pretty daunting when they turn up and they say, well, we're going to do this, that, and the other thing. We're going to transport you and we're going to work on you. It's pretty, especially when it doesn't have this kind of airy fairy feel good about it, because you would like to think something like that is going to feel good, But I looked at these beings and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not even sure about you, like,
So you
and
weren't,
so
you didn't feel, I mean, it didn't feel perfectly aligned or what?
I felt they had a pragmatic approach that I wasn't used to. It wasn't like a beautiful divine,
Yeah.
I'm seeing something of, they were a matter of fact. And,
Yeah.
when we went through a process and, which I took on board and accepted.
So that
So,
sounds like our friend Alicia Brachet from Melbourne, who's come in and
oh,
talked. She's come in and talked. Hers wasn't due to an illness, but to an energetic pregnancy that she'd been downloading information about for years and then was told to seek other women. And there's a really beautiful story behind it. But the interesting thing about it, which is similar to your situation when you use the word pragmatic, she was talking about how, because obviously this is, as you would know better than all of us, there's an emotional impact in this thing that's happening with you, or like in her case with her. And this mantid came in her room and said, "Hey, everything's going to be okay.
mm,
We're watching you. We got your
mm,
back." And she said,
mm,
"What about my emotional health?"
yeah,
And he said, "We didn't consider that."
yeah.
So when you say what you're saying, I think that's important because, like you said, you would prefer it to be, lovey-dovey, fluffy, but
Well, it
they're
would be
very,
nice.
yeah, well, they're very pragmatic is number one, and number two, the uniqueness that we have in what is our emotions and what we can do with that seems to be central to the transformation, in all its aspects that's occurring. And going back to you, that's what I was remarking at the beginning,
Mm,
like your continence. It's more
mm.
than just your disposition, it's your continence, it's your aura. Is there anything that you would point to directly that you feel would be the main reason two tumors defy medical, you know, opinion and disappear? Do you have any idea of what created that?
Absolute. First off, absolute non-acceptance that was going to be a reality in my body. That was going to, that those tumors were going to be there and they were going to overtake me and, and then take me out. And the absolute refusal and acceptance of that
Wow.
is the first thing,
Did you
really.
did you do affirmations or mantras, or you just click? I'm not going there. That's not in my.
I think these days it's real instant dropping into this space and going, no, this isn't, the minute the oncologist told me I had tumors and I had, pancreatic cancers and I had 6 to 9 months to live, my first reaction was a smile. And I looked at him and I said, and he offered me chemo and I said, no, I'm going to do it another way. That was like, and it wasn't even about processing it, thinking about it, or anything like that. It just becomes this innate knowing, I think, you know. And then what that journey looked like moving forward was just organic because it doesn't come with a rule book.
Right, right.
But I knew the important thing was that something was out of coherence in my body, for whatever reason,
Right.
ancestrally or, past whatever, and that I needed to get that coherence back in alignment, to
Right.
assist that. Because there's a lot of solutions out there. And I think ultimately you've really just got to go with what resonates with you,
Yeah.
you
God,
see.
you make it. Um, I mean, have you had to um, alchemize your emotions? Have you had to get control of them? Had you had to like accept them, or did
I think it
anything?
was about accepting, honoring, and allowing.
Except being honored.
Because I've had moments where I've just broken down and thought, I can't do this. You know, absolute broken down. I think there's a measure. I mean, I believe attitude is 50% probably, but within that, you've got to allow what comes up for you as a very real emotional thing, you know. And sometimes you know, in the early stages when I was in really chronic pain, I would just be bent over and crying, you know, like sobbing even. And there were times through the journey where I actually thought, oh my God, I don't know that I can do this. An easier option would just be to hand over to the medical, you know, because the palliative care nurse would come over and I would say to her, you know, you're fast tracking me for a hospice. I'm fast tracking me to live. You know, we're on two different pages here, you know. But I see, this is what I mean around the decision making, because there were times where I felt like giving into it, when I felt just that bad, you know, at 3 a.m. and going, oh God, you know. And so the next question really was to ask myself, well, what's your why for wanting to stay? You know, and having to be really clear on that, so that in those moments I had a barometer and go, nah, you know, because it's very easy when you're feeling sick, you know, to go, yeah, give me all the morphine, give me all the fentanyl, give me whatever it is that I'm needing to make myself comfortable, and then I'm just going to eventually transition, you know. And when you're in that sort of sickness, you know, like that, it's very easy. It feels like an easy option, you know. But, you know, I then get this thing about myself and I go, you know what? I've just come through 60 years of hell and this isn't going to take me out. You know, and two, you know, I don't want to be on the other side to see us all ascend. I don't want to be on the other side. I want to see my grandchildren come into the new world, you know, like in the human form, not from the other side, you know. I thought, bugger it. You know, you know, like we all have, you know, we've all had our battles on this planet. I mean, what a planet, right?
Right. Look at your
You
smile.
know, so, you know, there's an amount of stubbornness or willfulness around this too, I think, for me anyway, you know.
Yeah.
And not so much a blind faith, although faith does feature in the process as well.
Well, there's something about will, as in free will or willpower, that isn't just unique to soul. You know, I mean,
Yes.
like the ego has this will, and it's not such a bad thing. It's just an attribute of it that can be used in a positive way. I know I can relate to that, and a lot of people that have gone through the times that you're talking about. There was a part of us that, to me anyway, that was ego that was like, I'm not stopping. I don't give a damn what anybody says. This is going down. But like in your case, you had both. You had the personal will, you know, this innateness that you're talking about. And then you have a visitation, and it sounds like what people call an abduction. You were taken somewhere. So there was some mechanics involved as well, which is similar to other people's stories, including Franco's. So did you go to a ship? And I know it doesn't matter who they were or what it was, but like what?
Yeah, it was really interesting. It was, it just happened all out of the blue. My daughter, I was in bed because I wasn't feeling that crash hot. My daughter looks out the window, and this is how our conversation started. She goes, oh, look at that cloud, Mum. Gosh, it looks like a spaceship, doesn't it? No other clouds in the sky, perfect spaceship out there. And I'm going, oh, yeah, okay, you know, that's all pretty good. She took, you know, she went out. I'm lying in bed just feeling like absolute crap. And this ball appeared, like in front of me, this round ball. And I'm thinking, well, this is new. Like I could see it. Now, I don't know whether I went into the ball or the ball came into me, but I started shaking. At that point, my daughter had returned and I could hear her downstairs, and I called out to her and I said to her, I don't know what's happening here, but I need you to hold some space. That much I knew, right? So she comes up. I send her back down to get her this beautiful greenstone, which I, gifted to her. For her reintroduction, to get her feet back into the Aotearoa, the land of New Zealand, the land here, because she's been away. She's been in England and, or other parts of the world. And I said, go down and put the greenstone on, I said, I don't know what's happening, but you've got to hold some space. So she stood at the end of the bed. This is probably late afternoon, 4:00, something like that. And I started shaking. Now, I can't even repeat how I was shaking, but I was shaking. My whole body was shaking. And what then happened next, I said, I'm elevating, because I said to her, I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to try and relay to you what is happening to me.
Wow.
So that we're, in this. So I started to elevate. Now, in my journey for a few months, I had been creating in the energy centers, and my portal was kind of like this whitish pyramidal shaped thing where I would actually go from this realm into the out into the quantum, and that was something that was already set up, and I felt that I was being directed straight up to that point. But when I got inside it, because I've been inside it many times in meditations where I've had interactions and, in that ascended state of meditating, but it all looked like the inside of it felt to me like it was a spaceship. That was the first time I saw these beings, which I didn't notice before. And I'm lying on the slab and I'm saying to my daughter, I know I'm in bed and I know I'm shaking, but I'm actually here as well. And I looked over to a side table, and there was a set of emerald gems, in the shape of now that was something between me and my mother. And so I felt her presence by seeing that on the side table.
So you saw on the side table, you saw an area.
It was a set of emerald gems in the shape of, she used to call me, well, she didn't call me princess, but it was something that happened metaphysically after she had passed on.
Okay. And
it was a gifting that I'd then given to my daughter, because that's got a whole other story to it.
Do you feel like, so what you're saying, do you feel like she was there? Or
I felt like she had made herself known, so I would be comfortable, because these beings were quite daunting. Like I say, they weren't fairy. They turned up in my...
Were they tall white beings?
No, they were slate grey. To me, it looked like almost squarish. It looked robotic. It looked silver greyish, and it was quite... I'm thinking to myself, but then all these colours appeared and they were working on me. I'm shaken, they're working on me, and then synchronistically, I'm actually, lying in bed, because I'm in both places at once. It's the weirdest thing. And I'm lying on the bed and at the same time, and I said to my daughter, can you, because I saw this beautiful lime green colour come out of my navel. So, because that's where all the cancer is, right, in that gut area, right? And I saw this beautiful, as they were working on me simultaneously with all these kind of tubes and colours and things, I then saw all of this come out. And I said to her, you need to dip your hands in the water that you brought up, unbeknown to her as to why she brought it up. We now know why. And I said, you will know what to do with that water, and you will know how to bless it, and you will know what to do. You said, because this is the first time my daughter and I had ever done something like this together. It was the first time she'd done anything like this, hold space in that way. And what I got to see of her was not her human conditioned self. I got to see her magnificence and her whole energetic. So I was relating to her as that beingness.
Wow.
So I knew intuitively that she would do the right thing, which she did, and she, I said, splash that water on my stomach,
So she didn't have any directions, nothing. She just, you knew that she was going to do what needed to be done.
Yeah.
And she would know what needed to be done.
We were in it. Her conscious self later, when we were reflecting on it, she said, "Oh God, Mum, I thought this was it. I thought you were going to transition. All I could think was, how am I going to go downstairs and tell Roger that you've passed?" She said, because I felt like this is it, But that was her human conditioned self
Right.
doing that. But what I got to see was a magnificence that she stepped into inside of that space, So it was quite amazing. Anyway, they did this work on me. Now, it felt like, to me, it just went on for hours and hours and hours and hours and bloody hours. My daughter tells me it wasn't that long at all, you see. So that was the other weird thing. The time thing on it had, But those same things, Todd, I don't want to jump around here, but they turned up in my bedroom about 3 days later. Woke up, bang, 3 o'clock in the morning, woke up, and there they were, literally in my bedroom. And I said, "Who are you?" I now want to know who you are, because they came and they said, "We haven't finished with you. Can we go in?" And I had that kind of uncomfortable discernment again, thinking, God, but I kind of said yes, because I don't know. And they put in these balls. They put these balls into my gut. And we had a conversation, and they explained to me what they were and how they work. And this isn't in my mind's eye. This is them literally being there.
No, I'm with you. Yeah, I got you.
Doing it, right? And this is the bit that gets me around the emotional stuff that you were talking about earlier. Because one of them that was sitting to the side of my bed, he was actually sitting down, the other two were standing. After I asked who they were, they then opened up. It was like that robot thing I was telling you that I was seeing. And they were a massive cosmic energy, all colourful. And they said, "We are from all over the galaxies." But they said, for us to be in this density with you, we've needed for you to be able to come, at that level, so that we can, descend, if you like. Is that the right word for it?
Yeah. No, I got
and
you.
be there. Yeah. So I felt a bit more relaxed after I witnessed this. But one of them to the side asked me and said, and this is where there's no emotion in it for them, there's no real recognition of the human condition, asked me to transmute some very, very dense global energy within a specific, which I won't kind of go into in this conversation, but for a specific, sector of our people in the world, which is quite heavy, confronting.
Okay.
And would I transmute that energy,
Wow.
And I'm lying. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
So I'm lying in bed, still feeling pretty sick, I feel like a bag of bones because I've lost weight, feeling really weak and vulnerable. And I looked at him and thought, "Are you mad?" I said, "No, I can't do that." For the life of me, I can barely transmute my own ancestral stuff, let alone taking on board this whole collective of the world. I knew what was being asked of me, and maybe under different circumstances, but not when I'm trying.
Yeah, but you chose you. I mean, you did the right thing.
Well, yeah, I like to think so,
Well,
Todd.
but I think this is one of the things that's been coming out over the last year and a half, one way or the other, has been that our sovereignty applies at all timelines, dimensions, situations.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's a couple of things I find really interesting here, because I talked to Franco in Sedona for two or 3 days. We got to spend some private time together. So I was able to talk to him about things that he didn't talk about on screen. And I had questions because I knew that he was working with a group, like a lot of us do. And they seem to have like an agenda. Like they had his well-being in mind, but and they took him similar story. And I said to him, do you ever ask him, like, what about me? Who are you? Are you, So the outcome of it was ultimately that he began to speak to his soul directly through a period of time, and because of the COVID thing and all that. and it was just, again, I could see how they were using him
Yes.
to do work that was collective at the
Yes.
expense of his physical body,
Yeah.
which
Right.
just gave out. And so, like, talking to you now, um, I just find it interesting that they threw that in there. So it's not like they don't care
Yeah.
about, let's say, the human life. I think maybe they have a perspective that knows there is no death. And so whether
Yes.
they're working with you in a human body or another body, previous life, next life, parallel life, whatever, they're still seeing the same soul. But what I find
Yes.
interesting too is when I wanted to ask you, did they tell you what they were doing specifically? And have they come back since that second visit? Uh, or have you invited them?
Haven't invited them because that was a very full-on, intense experience.
Hmm.
They haven't visited me since then. But we did have the conversation at, whatever time of the morning that was, about what those balls were and what they're going to do and how I can utilize them moving forward, of which on some level I probably understand, but in my human conditioned mind, it's totally all went out the window, because when I woke up the next day, I totally forgot what they told me. So in terms of what they did, I don't really know, to be fair.
So the balls, it sounds like the balls are still in there if they told you you could use these.
Yes, I believe they are. I
Wow.
I believe they are, and it somehow has me connected to something. And it's an interesting point you brought up, that have I invited them? And I suppose if I was to sit quietly, because this whole journey is about a stillness, and kind of thought about it, I could probably connect in with them again, or have the invitation there, or whatever. But it's just never, I don't know, because one thing just kept moving on to the next, on to the next, and on to the next in terms of my journey. So
Well,
I don't really know what it all means, what
yeah.
happened that night, or
Well, I've done a lot of research, like a lot of people. One of the things I've run into is, first of all, let me just say, uh, I see this as very positive. First of all, they're coming in and they're bringing you into a higher level of alignment. We can call it healing, or they're assisting you. And I'm with you. I think that what they are projected from you. They
mm,
are you somehow, however that works. So, but the fact that they're helping you to get better and sustain yourself tells me that they have an interest in what you're here to do. So that to me seems very positive. You know what I
that's
mean?
my feeling. That's
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
my feeling. I don't believe that I'm just going to be cancer free very soon,
Yeah.
and then that's kind of the end of that part of my journey. I think it's quite pertinent. I think it's quite a pertinent thing.
Yeah.
Um, my mother came to me one night. She's passed on, and
Now, was this
she
during this time that she
um,
came? Or was this before?
she this actually happened after all this, actually.
Okay.
And she
Okay.
came,
So,
she came to me, and she presented in a beautiful color that I felt. Not only could I see it, but I could feel this beautiful color. It just had so much energy in it. But she came to help me transition, and I said to her, I could have let go that night, and I could have passed on.
wow.
I know that for a fact. And I mean, I know that as part of my truth.
Yeah.
And, but I said to her, no, I said, I'm not ready.
Wow.
Mum, I'm not ready. And I said, I've got things to do here, and I
Yeah.
want to stay.
Yeah.
And, as soon as I said that, she clapped my arms, boom, clapped them together. And then I was kind of back in my body somehow, and it was all over. So,
Wow.
that was quite an interesting thing too. But it was lovely to see her.
Uh,
Um,
and I like what you said too. I mean, these are really good points because I haven't run across people that have had so many of these things come up that I think are important because there's a lot of misconceptions. But one of the things I was going to say earlier was that in doing some research, there's a narrative out there that's out there enough that you have to look at it and give it some credibility, but it doesn't mean it's true. But that when these things occur that we call abductions, one of the things that they talk about is making or bringing in energy that's familiar to you. So like in your case, your mother's, the gems that were there, like her presence, I think that's, that's something that, people might need to know. The other thing is...
Oh, I forgot to tell you. Sorry to interrupt. I forgot to tell you. When my daughter and I were reflecting on that, like I was asking her what the experience was like for her, she said, well, Mum, she said, I really felt to put those gems on my head, the ones that you gifted me a couple of years earlier, like metaphysically. And that to me was like, well, that said everything.
Yeah.
In that confirmational moment, I said, well, they were there, up there, wherever there was. And so sorry, I forgot to tell you that.
No, that's fascinating. And I was going to ask you, I'm going to ask you about that. I want to follow up on your daughter too. But what was I going to say? So like the other thing too is like how you have retained your individuality, your sovereignty, right? As these things have been put before you, such as them coming into your room, asking permission, you granting it, you staying in your power, telling your mother, no, I'm not ready to go, or telling them, I'm not going to do, just because you tell me to do something, I'm not going to do it. I don't have the strength to transmute something collectively that's going to kill me, basically. I mean, the whole point is I find it really powerful that you stay calm, relaxed, and you're in your power. And you're not, I'm sure you appreciate the collaboration and the higher alignment of healing that has come or is coming, continuing to come, or whatever their involvement would be. But at the same time, you're still calling the shots for yourself. And I think that's what I was trying to get to, and maybe I was alluding to it when we first started talking today, was that there's something about you that I haven't seen very much. And it's this calmness, relaxed, accepting, powerful. But powerful doesn't mean like, you're holding up a shield and a sword and I'm going to be a warrior. And, it's this other thing. And I noticed this I think you did a couple of videos. I know you did a couple of posts. And I picked up on it. Wow. And I think I made the comment on the show last week. Hey, can you, if Morgan's watching, can you reach out to Trisha? Because I want to know what's happening. But now with your daughter. So were you saying basically that, because we all know we have similar stories. We're the black sheep. We're doing crazy things. Our families don't always understand. Certainly, if they do, they don't run in the same circles we do. So like you said, my daughter and I have never really done anything like this. Had y'all even talked about the things that you're experiencing and have experienced, your own journey? Does she relate to that stuff? Or what was going on when that happened?
I actually feel that her coming from England and spending time with me through this journey has been rebonding.
Wow.
As a mum previous to all of this, I was always very protective of her, and not being entirely honest, like if things were not that good with me, I wouldn't be so forthcoming about all that in protection of her. But this whole journey has just been about really just authentic and raw and honest and real.
Right.
And one of the hardest things that in the beginning was calling her in England and saying, this is what the doctors are telling me.
Wow.
I agonized over that. What child wants to hear their parents say that? This is what they're telling me. However, we're going to change it up, And so her being here and being part of the journey with me has brought in a real I can see her more clearly, and I can see who she is more clearly, and she can see who I am more clearly,
Yeah.
So it's great reconnection, really. And she's pretty awake, and she's on her own journey, and she expresses things differently, and we're just different personalities, but on the same, on a similar kind of awake type journey, I guess.
Wow.
But that was a real opportunity for her that day in the room, and I really felt that. And
it sounds like it was almost like a monadic, multidimensional experience where there was a bunch of family brought in, basically. But and do you think there's anything because I'm a big believer that the most powerful connection that can be had on this earth is a mother-daughter. That's just what from my experience, the way I see it. And then another thing I've noticed, like through being around Morgan and just other things that have come in, I guess through the show, has been the lineage of the feminine. So you've got the mother, you and the daughter in this space of alchemy, magic, and healing. Do you feel like that there's something to that? I'm not trying to put words in.
Definitely. In terms of, I don't know, just the whole Mother Earth thing, it's really quite pertinent. I think it's really important. And, my journey a little bit previous to this was exploring, who my mother really was, and where she came from and what her lineage was, and what that looked like for her. And I went to her homeland, and along with my sister and my other niece.
Where was her homeland?
So my mother was born in Tonga.
Oh, okay.
But not just Tonga, she was born in the Royal Ground, Tonga. And there's a whole bunch of secrecy around why she was brought up in the royal household and stuff like that. And
really,
so that was quite a journey. It was a journey. And so my grandmother has presented on many occasions to all us girls into the reasons why, and that's just been a whole other journey. But it's a sensitive topic because it's not the sort of thing that you can go around saying actually that, that your grandmother was the Queen of Tonga, because that could be hugely offensive to the Tongan people. But the thing is that we know what the truth is.
Right.
And that's matters. So I just want to say, have we got time?
We got plenty of time. We got all the time in the world for you.
Oh, fabulous. I went through this process of inviting my ancestral lineage, and I was seeing a woman who I asked to hold the space. She was a therapist, and who I engaged with to help me kind of just provide space for me. And she needed to understand, how I rolled around all this stuff. And I told her that I was going to come and have a session with her. I wanted her to hold the space. I wanted to put, this is earlier in the piece, I wanted to put the tumor at the pancreatic head, which is really what I was mainly diagnosed with. That's not there anymore. I wanted to put that in the chair next to me in the room. I wanted to remove it, put it in, and I wanted to look at it. Then I wanted to go and sit in it. Then I wanted to invite my ancestors from that line to bring whatever it was, because I felt there was so much unresolved depression, angst, all of that sort of stuff. And sure enough, we did that. We made that happen. And this woman said to me, my God, when you sat in the tumor, she said, your whole demeanor just changed.
Wow.
Just changed, and I allowed it, and I went into the space and I allowed my ancestors to turn up, and they turned up all right, going right back along that line, and they were throwing in all their, just all their unresolved stuff that they would have passed over with. You see, my mother died of pancreatic cancer.
So this is,
you see. And so, it was just an opportunity to, when I felt I was ready, I stepped out of that chair, came and sat back down. And this woman said to me, my gosh, she said, your whole demeanor changed. Like you just changed. And then when I looked back in the chair to look at that tumor, it had shrunk right down. It had almost dissipated, visually, that I could actually see. So, and this is where I feel it's just not a one size fits all, because that wouldn't resonate with anybody else. That wouldn't be part of their healing, part of my healing journey and real to me, but it wouldn't be part of somebody else's healing journey.
yeah.
But I also believe in that moment, Todd, that I've actually put an end to those types of tumors and cancers to my girls moving forward, and their children and their children and their children.
I bet you have.
We've put an end, for my nieces, and
I mean,
so that we can put an end to it,
Yeah, I bet you have. And I'll bet
Yeah.
you that, like, in other words, it was the perfect equation, multi-equation. Like, it was a perfect moment. So those beings, I can see why they would ask you to do what they did, because it wasn't just you. There was all this collaboration. It was a big day for the family lineage, so to speak. And I think you're absolutely right. If you feel like it's been eradicated, it has. No
Yeah.
doubt. Like
Yeah.
that's, and again, we all know, I mean, doing something like that affects this entire grid.
It affects that. That's exactly right, isn't it?
And whatever they wanted transmuted will be affected in a positive way by that single, scenario. That's just my take on it.
Yeah. I just
Wow.
knew I just couldn't front up at the time. I just
Now, have you ever had, prior to this, any type of visitation at all?
Well, actually, funny you should ask. When my brother passed on, it was just the most amazing experience. He was given, I don't know, a couple of months to live or 4 weeks to live, or we went down to visit him to help him prepare his funeral. And anyway, he was always a star watcher, stargazer, always watching, like astronomy wise, and always fascinated with the galaxies and all that sort of thing, and movement in the sky. Well, there was one afternoon we were around there, and he was busy telling us what star constellation was this and what was that and what was the other thing. And later on, when this, as the sun was kind of going down, my sister and I were outside, and she was looking one way and I was looking the other way. And my sister says, "Oh, is that what Marty means by, whatever constellation?" I turned around to look at what she was looking at, and they were unidentified flying objects suspended at the end of his driveway. Suspended, like just a normal domestic street. I know in America they're quite wide streets, but these are quite just general streets. We're standing in, and they were that close, and they were just above the lamplight, and that low. And wow, and I'm yelling out to Marty, you got to come and see this. Oh my gosh, you can't miss this. You can't really come out. His eyes just lit up. He'd never seen anything like it.
Miss your brother?
And neither had I actually, or my sister, but they were literally there like these orange, they had lights and everything, like it wasn't a cloud, I can tell you that. It was an actual suspended at the end of his driveway. Well, in the newspaper the next day, they were actually seen flying over the skies. Well, I was in the North Island at that time, in the South Island, so they were literally there. People had actually seen them. But I love the way that they were suspended his driveway because he was about to pass on, and he spent a lot of time. And I just said to him, Marty, they've come to get you, mate. And he grinned from ear to ear. So, but yeah, no, I don't know that I've had any other real. I used to see them a lot as kids, but nothing like the beings that I had seen.
That's another reason I'm interested in it is because Mary Rodwell, her work comes to mind, and she obviously has a lot of context, and she had some context in the educational institutions, and so she obviously has gathered a lot of information about abductions over the years since the 90s, and so they had some friends that were at a university. They were studying the effects of a shamanic journey, and somebody goes and works under a shaman, and what happens to them. That's what they were studying. They compared her data of so-called abductions with the data of those that were on the shamanic journey or whatever, tutelage, and the effect was the same. In other words, they were both basically opportunities for transformation in a certain physical, storyline. And so I like your story a lot because there's so much grandiosity added to so many of these stories, and I understand that because we're human and it's a big deal. But the way that you present it and the way that they presented themselves to you, which was, I guess, from our standpoint, insensitive. Again, like the mantid told my friend, we didn't consider that. We didn't consider the human emotional part. And to me, that's exciting because that's the one thing we have that no one else seems to. And it's been a great weakness. It's been allowed for us to be controlled and disempowered because we didn't know what it was or what we were. Now, and you're a perfect example, what does it look like when somebody has balanced their emotions and channeled that energy into a situation or experience like you are and you represent?
I think it's quite a gift. Look, I'm probably, I don't know that I'd change this journey for anything really because of what I've learned from it, really. And it's the most profound thing I've ever kind of been through in my life, I guess. And I've got a pretty colourful background, and I think it's been. It almost feels like a privilege to, it feels like a gift somehow. And I know that sounds crazy, but and what it all means, I still don't know what it all means or where it's heading or where it's going or anything like that. I suppose my take on it is that I just front up every day and just look at what I need to deal with in the day around that and about that.
So you're very present with yourself. I mean, you're not thinking about the future. You're certainly not hung up on the past. You're just in a present by moment presence.
Yeah.
In the present.
With an intention that always everything is in service to humanity, because at the end of the day, right now, that's all that matters, really. Service to others.
Right.
On some level, and so it's got to be of the highest good. I mean, I just think so long as I'm walking in God's light somehow, then that's all that kind of matters, like that kind of makes any sense, because how else do we have our barometer for the choices and the decisions that we make?
Yeah.
And what that means.
It's just so wild to consider, but it seems like this is what's happening. Like, it's like you said, it's like there's this air of privilege and honor and service, reverence, and of course we get all these downloads, we have all these experiences, and we're there's always that kind of that carrot on the stick, heaven is coming, but what I'm seeing, and you're like a huge example, is it's not like that. It's
Mm.
just a
Yeah.
relaxed
Yeah.
living. It's just living,
It's
living,
just living.
and you know what I
Yeah.
mean. And but living
Yeah.
in like in a symbiotic way with the external, like understanding it, communicating with it, collaborating with it, so that you are with those who you want to be with, that you are doing the things that you want to do and are here to do. It's like all of this stuff comes in and becomes one. Uh, like everything you're talking about, everything you experience, these beings, your daughter, your mom, the affliction, the doctors, everything is you guiding you to choice points, and you've demonstrated that you've made them. And I
Yeah.
know you.
It's the other interesting thing, which you might find hard to explain, but or articulate, is what goes on in the world, um, simultaneously as my journey, and then the world is going through, we all know what the world's going through. Sometimes I feel has a direct impact on the cellular structure because of my body, because I'm really sensitive to it because there's not much of me, now. Um, and, with what's happening in the Ukraine and Russia and places like that, I don't know if I'm going to explain this properly, but I feel if it's all so connected, I know we're talking about it, tumor of the pancreas or whatever, but somehow there's a direct correlation between that
Yes.
and what is happening extrapolated out there in the world, and that individually with whatever it is because we've all got to shift something, deal with something or whatever, but if individually we are all individually doing that, then that is changing up everything that's going on in the world.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I don't know if I
Well,
explained myself
no,
properly,
you
but
did. You did.
mm,
You did explain yourself very clearly, and it makes me wonder when those beings asked you to transmute something, on a regional in a regional place for the collective, if that was, in other words, like a clue, they were dropping a clue, like, hey, when you do this, you're actually, you know, cleaning up the
mm,
pancreas of the world, or whatever, however you want to put it. But it's
yeah,
weird because I get what you're saying. There is coming into the field, and I think into our awareness, the relationship between what goes inside our body, what goes on inside our body, and what's happening out here.
yeah,
And
yes,
I was going to ask you too, like, how. I mean, I know this is a lot of this is, I guess, being said in your words, but how has this experience overall, all of it, the last 15 months, how has this changed you or has expanded you, and has it brought you any type of higher sensitivities or gifts or abilities?
uh, yes to all of the above, really. I suppose it's slowed me down. Actually,
Mm.
it's the eagle has landed. I'm not so much in flight. Observing, and I've landed, and that's I've slowed down a lot. I think that is a good thing.
Mm.
I'm more proactive, instead of being reactive to everything. So there's been some great growth there. Um, can't remember what the other things were that you asked.
Just like having um, higher sensitivity. I mean, I guess you
Yes,
have.
definitely.
You have because you
Yeah, yeah.
but
Around resonation with people, and people I used to mix with, just before all this happened, and that there's an acute awareness of knowing that I can't be in those people's company anymore.
Yeah.
So there's that type of sensitivity of what's nurturing as part of there's just a bigger thing going on, isn't there, all the time with us all. And, and I think that we just get put to where we need to be. So there's sensitivities around that of just innately knowing where I need to put my energy or who I'm spending time with.
Yeah.
It's not an intellectual thing. It's an absolute, when I get invited somewhere, I just tune into it and I just go yes or no.
It's not an intellect or rationale.
No.
It's intelligence, and there is a huge difference between intelligence and intellect. And what you're describing, again, I find this very encouraging and affirming because, again, I'm not saying everybody. I'm just saying I would think that a lot of people feel the same thing about this type of stuff, and that is because of the divine episodes and the divine occurrences and divine stories like your story and being exposed to these things. There's something to there's something to be said for how it's actually translating to the human experience. So if I say, have you any new gifts? I mean, telekinesis or, we're thinking, but actually it's the communication or the connection with infinite intelligence embodied into the human where it comes down to a very human thing. Do you want to go here? You feel into it? Yes, no, move on to the next thing, right? Like the human's very involved, I guess is what I'm saying. It's not like some fairy tale, but it is. But it's just, you thought it was going to be less literal, or I did. Because if you see angels and you've had ET experiences, and I've had plenty, there's that space. You're like, oh, it's going to be like that, but it's actually right here, isn't it? It's almost like we got dropped into heaven here, and we just kind of messed it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I suppose the inner knowing has just become more expansive through this journey. It's just more it's just become broader, and and you start looking at life through this space, not through this.
Yeah.
Because I'm finding now we only need to have a conversation that's of a high frequency for things to start happening.
Yeah.
Like when the ball started bouncing across my deck, the other day, and us three girls were out there and we're looking at each other going, there's no wind.
It's probably your mom. It's probably your mom.
Well, gosh, but we only need to we were just talking about how, if we could really see, I've got a lot of greenery around here. If we could really see the trees and another dimensional state, we'd be seeing all sorts of beautiful things around it and going on with it. And, and that was the sort of conversation we were having, And then this basketball decided to pick itself up and start bouncing for no particular reason.
I would imagine that, the atmosphere that you and your daughter, and of course it's not just you and your daughter, your daughter-in-law's there. I'm sure other people come around, but it's your mother. It's these aspects of you, soul family, physical, non-physical. I would imagine that there's some extraordinary, expansions of love, basically.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of women in my family, and I'm not discounting the men that are actually in my family, but there's a lot of women, very powerful women, and very loving, caring, and they've all been on the journey with me too. My sister, my nieces, and have provided their space of unconditional love and belief in my journey, and making a stand to have me win, through this, and being without judgment and just uniting, I suppose. And, because it's not easy on any family members, really, because they're the ones who really get to see the absolute sickness of it. When I'm throwing up into the bucket and my daughter's trying to help me to the toilet, and
Mm.
and she's cleaning up after me, and all that side of it is what the close family get to see,
Wow.
and it becomes a different type of relationship, but they all, what I'm loving about my family, and also too friends too, I want to extend that out to specific spiritual sisters and stuff like that, but they've been wonderful in being able to hold their own integrity around what's happening with me, so they don't buy into the chaos of it. They're very supportive of it, but I'm also aware of how draining it's been for them, and I often say that to my daughter and a wife, it's when I'm having a bad day, it's a really bad day, and the energy comes down, and I'm out there burning the sage, and and
Did they
just
know
trying
you
to
were?
use
Did
it.
they know you were like this before all this happened?
Yes,
Okay, so they.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it sounds like you have in your lineage you have a lot of white witchery.
yeah, yeah,
But I mean,
yeah,
you know what I mean. I'm just playing with the word. I mean, it's too
yeah,
bad you can't say the word witch, and people, it has a bad
yeah.
connotation. But I actually say it as like a priestess. But yeah, that's amazing, and I love how the emphasis, for a lot of people, these last couple of years, there's been a lot of solitude. There's been a lot of privacy, but I love how in your story, because I almost feel like it's a glimpse of the future, like
Mm,
the way there's that multidimensionality collaboration, the way intelligence supersedes intellect, but also going back to what I was saying is how a lot of people have been in solitude. You're close, you're kind of alone, but your closest circle is right there with you, and it's all happening together, right?
yes,
So I think that's a pretty powerful thing.
yeah.
It really is, and also, the fact that it's the feminine energy kind of tapping in, and I'm talking about all of you, like
Mm,
tapping into the sacred wisdom as opposed
mm,
to conventional wisdom in 2022 by the medical industry.
yeah,
you like when you
yeah,
called your
that's
daughter, you said, "Hey, I need to tell you what's going on. This is what's
yeah,
going on, but this is what's going to happen."
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I caught that when you said that to her, and I'm sure at some level, that activated her. It must have.
Well, yeah, definitely, yeah, definitely. And I think that I think you know, as as women and as older, we lead by example. When we teach, we become the teachers as
Yeah.
well as of for our children, and showing them the way, and then they choose within sight, within their own magnificence of, because the truth be known, they're probably a lot more advanced than what I am,
Yeah.
or any of us are. I mean, the new kids that are coming through, wow, aren't they just so out of it at the moment, really? The
Yeah.
little boy from Pluto that you interviewed, the boy from Pluto, I
Yeah.
watched him,
Oh
12
yeah.
year old.
Yeah, I remember that.
Where are you from, Pluto? These kids are amazing, aren't
I
they?
know. It's wild. I mean, if there's uh, more um, instant healing or self healing, if there's more and more of this happening in the individuals, then it has, and they're instant in their own way. I know, we can get carried away with the linear measurement, but ultimately it's kind of an instant thing. Like what you're talking about, it doesn't make any sense. It's an instant energetic. So if that's happening to more and more people on an individual basis, that would have to reflect in the external that we share together, the collective experience we share together. So what I'm trying to say is through these individual stories of instant transformation that come in so many different flavors and ways, we could very well see instant positive higher alignment in the world we share.
Definitely. I sometimes feel that my journey is a little bit antiquated you know, because by the time my grandchildren are, you know, by the time my daughter has them and then they've grown, it's all this health stuff is going to look so different. And, you know, I can almost imagine them saying, really? Nana went through that and it took that long, you know, like,
yeah.
you
Like,
know,
what was that? What was that, Mommy?
what what was that? But
Yeah.
it's interesting because I had some beings come to me in a meditation that said my journey has to be drawn out in this way because it's the only way that I can get it. It's the only way because of where we're at on the planet, if you like. It's the
Okay.
only way. Like I have to go through all the sickness. I have to go through all the, you know, instead of it being instant. You know, have you heard of the med beds, you know, where the people get into
Mm-hmm.
these med beds
Mm-hmm.
and you know, apparently there's one in the States somewhere, you know, and I think to myself, well, wouldn't that be great just to lie on this bed and by the time you get to the other side of it, you're all healed, apparently, is
Or
what
maybe
I've been hearing.
that's where people go when they have
Well,
experiences like yours, or maybe we're the med bed. Maybe
well,
you know, I mean, maybe it's, but regardless, it's through things like what you're doing that make it that kind of pave the road. In other words,
right,
other
yeah,
people like what you said, like what those beings told you. It's going to take longer for you, but those that come next, it's not going to take as long because
yeah,
the road's been paved and
yeah,
the memories and the come back. How to do things. I mean, this is sacred wisdom that what you and your mom and your daughter and these other aspects are anchoring.
yes.
It really is, no doubt.
Mm,
Do you
that's
play the
really.
bongo? Do you play the bongo, or is that the congo?
Oh, yeah, I do. Yeah,
Is it
this
a
is kind
bongo
of
or a
like,
congo? I get confused.
yeah, I do the, on
Yeah,
the djembe drums, you know.
cool, very cool.
Yeah, yeah. This is kind of like an art. My daughter's well, so so this is kind of like a space. It's quite neat actually because it's all windows, window that way, window
Hmm.
behind me, window. So I get to see the sunrise and the sunsets and all the green,
Are you
And
in?
so
Are you?
this,
And where are you? Are you in Auckland?
I'm in Christchurch,
Okay, Christchurch. Yeah,
South Island,
yeah,
where the big earthquakes were.
that's right. Well,
Mm.
I think you look absolutely beautiful. You look
Thank you.
about 20 years younger. I don't know what you're
Keep
doing, whatever you're doing. Your skin looks
keep doing it.
fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
No, you look great.
Yeah, it's good. Look, it's good to hear that. To be fair,
Mm.
it is good to hear that.
Well, you do.
And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. In terms of my weight loss, so it's a whole separate thing in and of itself. But the way I see it is this: Todd, get rid of the tumor, and all that goes away. That's all I need to focus on. I don't need to focus on the muscle mass loss or the fat loss or anything like that. I just need to get this tumor gone. And metaphysically, it's already gone anyway. I just have to live into it a little bit more.
Man, incredible, incredible, incredible.
Well, you've got to laugh, don't you? Yeah, but you've got to laugh. I don't know.
Yes, I think so. You can't take things too seriously. You know, there's there's
I
things. Yeah. Well, I like your story a lot because there's proof in the storytelling of it that you're making these decisions. Period. That's it.
yeah,
And that's a really powerful thing because I mean, we're all learning how much power we've given away to governments and relationships and
yes,
churches, and when really, it's weird because what is waking up? Waking up and going, oh, that's why I made that decision. That's why I have this job. I mean,
yeah,
it's like it's okay to choose yourself. Because
yes,
really, when you choose yourself, you really aren't just choosing yourself. You're choosing, in harmony, everything external, including those closest to you, and so on and so on. You're doing the best thing you could for yourself is the best thing you can do for the universe.
you're choosing transformation and change when you
Yeah.
choose yourself in that way and don't give your power away, as long as the intent's good. It's quite simple, really. I think if you've got the right intent of heart, that's all you need, really.
Yeah.
That's all you need, you know.
Yeah, that's what I
And
was getting at earlier. What you just said. Like, if you have like um, this air about you, which is very simple, and that's what it is. That's why, like, was it this? Was it that? Was it this? That what would you attribute to this, or this? No, it's just my heart. You know, like it's just that's where I live. That's where I see from is my heart. Now, this is what I'm picking up from you, which is very refreshing because anybody can do this. You know,
yeah,
you think about people, oh, they channel or they do this, and then we're already in that comparison mode and superiority and inferiority. But for someone to say, I'm a human being, I had these experiences, I chose this and I chose that.
yeah,
I don't care if it's these tall gray, or my doctor or whoever. I'm driving this ship, you know, and I think that's a beautiful thing because that can only be done if the human's totally present.
yeah. You know, you mentioned being in the now, you know, because I think that's very key. Just now, right now.
Yeah.
My partner's profoundly deaf, and we communicate in sign language, and that's kind of the language of the house, really, when he's around. But he's taught me how to listen, and he teaches me how to really be in the now, just by being who he is. He's so present to what he's doing at any given moment,
Right.
and it rubs off on me, you know, and it teaches me a lot. I complain a bit too, of course, and think he's got no situational awareness. He's so focused on what's happening right there, he can't see what's happening over there. But anyway,
Thank
we all
God.
want to complain, don't we? Mm.
No, I was going to say, thank God I'm not the only one. Because
Yeah,
I wonder sometimes, how do you miss that? How do you miss that?
yeah,
And I
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's because I don't know. Well, if he's making an impression on you, I mean, you're making an impression on all of us. And I really appreciate you coming in
Thank you, Todd.
and being so open. And I don't know what to say. There's nothing I could say to convey to you, my feelings towards you.
Thank you,
Um,
Todd.
yeah, thank you. I love you,
Beautiful.
and I'll see you again in 2022. We'll do it again.
Love you too. I just want to say, Morgan, I love the way she says
Hmm.
there are many ways up a mountain. Is that
Yes.
what she said? Many ways
Yeah.
up a mountain. I
There's
simply share my own
right.
pathway or my own story. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. I do too. I love everything about her.
Yeah.
I'll see you
Gorgeous.
later.